Yeah, hi. So in this tutorial, I want to show you how to start moving these control points around to change the shape of the hull. Obviously, the varying, the degree at which you change these will rapidly change the characteristics from buoyancy through to speed, through to drag, all sorts. So first thing what I want to do is in the perspective view, you can see I've got a slightly different colouring going on here. And if you go into display at the top here and click the render button, then you get this window that opens up. And you can choose simple or smooth shading, but the ones that show how the curve changes from its normal projection are these two, the Gaussian and the longitudinal. So longitudinal is just showing you if it's positive or negative, so really just the sort of flat sections and where you're getting shape changes along the length of the boat. The Gaussian curve is showing a positive or negative to the normal line of the curve. So it's either on the same curve or it's going negative, so away from it, or positive towards it. So both of these are really useful to show how the shape is changing and how severe the shape is changing. So my favourite way of doing some simple alterations is in body plan. If you maximise the window so you can see it better, we've got these little triangles here that we know that if we click them we're going to see the shape at that given point running down the length. So what I try to do is I try to start at the front somewhere. We know that all of these should land on the center line, and that means that the hull is closed at the front. And then it comes down to a simple process of dragging these to the sort of shape that you want, and seeing what that does to the overall hull shape itself. So you might want, like here I've put a concave bow in here. You may want to move all of these, so I just used a left click and hold to select all of the points, and now if I hold shift and move them, they'll only move in one plane as we found before. So I might select just a few of them and this time move them in this plane, just horizontally. You can zoom in and zoom out. You can separate the points out a little bit further, and this will then give you a varying degree of severity of the actual shape change. Now of course all we've done there is change the shape across the hull at this given point, so we need to sort of go back and see what that's done to our overall shape change, and as we can see it's not really done a huge amount, not really got any Gaussian changes, but again we might want to have a look at our longitudinal shape change, and as you can see it's brought it in a bit at the bow there, so it's got a bit of longitudinal shape change. Now this is obviously quite a time-consuming process. You're going to have to work through every single one of them, changing the shape to what you want, and checking it against your perspective view and see how that looks. I mean, if I take this view here and move these points in our body plan view, bring them all the way in there, you can see what it's done to our our longitudinal curve. Now we've got a massive dimple in the side of the boat. The other one that we're going to have to change as well is obviously in our profile view. we may want to change the bow to have a bit more shape, because it's currently what we call plumb, so vertical up and down. And we may want to put a bit of a curve in there. So if I make this window bigger and zoom right in, because we've got quite a lot of points, we'll spread them out a bit. I'm going to use the shift key so it only goes vertically up, and I'll do that to spread out each individual point a little bit. And then come down to this control point, the sort of pinky red one. We can bring that one in. We can then maybe highlight a few, move them vertically up a little bit, and you might want to bring this one up a little bit here and start playing around with the what's known as the rocker. The rocker is the curvature of the hull along its length. A boat with big rocker, especially where the rocker falls roughly around the center of flotation, will pivot quicker and react quicker. A very flat bottomed hull like in this shape here will be a lot harder to turn, and actually it'll be a lot harder to get on the plane as well, because it'll act like a vacuum sucking the hull down. So the changing of the points is what's going to take the time. It always does. It takes a long time to go through them individually, moving the points out, and that's unfortunately the nature of this element. We can make it simpler by using less control points, but we'll have more. That'll have a more dramatic effect on the hull shape with just moving one point, but we won't have the control of the curve that we might want. So that's the end of this tutorial, and really now it's over to you individually to come up with some designs. When we've got something, we can put them back into resistance, Maxsurf resistance, and see what the performance and drag coefficients are. Okay, this is the end of this tutorial, and there'll be another one shortly.